now from the ball game. How was that review with the group?
There's probably two parts to it. The ability to be able to certainly restrict them in the first half, and went away from some things that we know have worked throughout the season, and then for the second half to be able to sort of come back and put some real scoreboard pressure and give ourselves an opportunity was really pleasing. Fell short, but we need to make sure we address both what we did well and certainly the back end, but then also how we try and restrict some of the scoring ability and opportunities we missed early as well.
After the game, you talked about the fact that it was probably the lowest efficiency game that you guys play. How do you address that?
Yeah, I think we just got to train it. I think one thing as well, you don't just look at an instance. So obviously, for the game, it wasn't ideal, but for most part of the year, our efficiency has been actually okay. And that was all over the ground. Ahead of the ball, we were 44% inside 50 compared to their 38. So we had opportunities, we just didn't take them.
First half tackle count was very low, I guess. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's something we got to look at. We didn't tackle. We were at 50% efficiency, so the opportunities were there, but we actually didn't stick a lot of them, and they resulted in a lot of goals. So that was part that we certainly had to address. On top of that, we were plus 25 or something in the contest. So previously we've been behind in that area, which gave us more opportunity to actually apply a lot of pressure. They're just some metrics, but collectively we need to put more pressure on the opposition.
I mean, there's been a couple greats of the game that have just sort of said that they haven't seen that Swans brand of footy at the start of this season. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, well, I think one thing we've always been is we've generally been a really high pressure team. And this year we're 13th in that area. So it's an area we need to improve at. We want to make sure that, we're level across all areas of our game. That's one we're down in. So we need to get back to doing that.
Just on that criticism, Paul Roos in particular was pretty scathing, sort of saying Carlton Globetrotters football, really a reliance on a player like Isaac Heaney. What do you say about that, especially as a coach who's trying to create a team where everyone's going to be? I know that was a big focus this season, that you're not just a one-player team. What do you say to comments like that?
Yeah, we want our best players to play well. We don't shy away from that. But also on top of that, we want to not only rely on those single players. We want to work and be a really hard team to move the ball against defensively. Some of those metrics are really good. Our pressure isn't. And that's also, pre and post clearance. So it's an area we need to focus on. We need to give ourselves every opportunity to win the ball back as quickly as we possibly can, other than through a system, through intent and intensity. So, people, they're warranted to their opinion. It's an area we know internally we need to work on, and we'll get to work on that.
Just on those defensive measures, as you said, it's been a key focus, and as you just said then as well, the numbers have been pretty good. Like the uncontested marks against have dropped, the scores were inside 50s against. I think one of the top 4 teams in the league. So do you take a lot of positives out of the fact that, okay, the system is working, it's just about finding a bit more effort to kind of complete the whole project?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, on the weekend, to restrict them going to corridor, they went 15% length of ground. So there are some numbers that are, I suppose, pleasing for the playing group for the effort they are putting in that sense. The ability in other measures and areas we need to work on are obviously that intensity around the ball, and the ability to try and put enormous pressure on the opposition is where we created our most scoring opportunities from previously, and we need to get back to that.
Are you worried that in the past couple of rounds you have been perhaps too reliant on two players?
Yeah, well, that's what we can't be. I think that's why we've lost both of those games. So as well, we need to make sure that it's not only our best players playing well, but the mid-tier, the players that have played a lot of footy. We need to collectively improve everyone on our list. That's our role as coaches.
I know you won't use it as an excuse, but the injury list probably doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. But we have 23 players that go out and play. And I expect them to play at the level that's required. If they're young, we want older players to lead from the front and lead by example, so these guys can follow. If they're young, they just to come and play to the system and to their strengths. So we've been seeing that throughout patches, just not consistently. So we need to get that right.
Have you got a sort of vague idea on when Logan McNaught might be back from that latest ankle injury?
No, I don't. No, he's seeing the specialist today. But obviously, if you're seeing a specialist, it doesn't look good. So we've got to work our way through that. And we'll get more information by the end of the day. deliberate on that and work out the best action going forward.
Is the team feeling a bit of pressure? Obviously last year you guys were so successful playing an attacking sort of brand of footy. Now this year Paul Roy's coming out saying Harlem Globetrotters footy. Obviously your first tenure. Is the team feeling a little bit of pressure?
No, I think the players and certainly the club feel a little bit of pressure to be the best they possibly can be in all facets of the game, and that's one thing that we control is what can we control about the process, not just outcome based, and that's something that we hold firm to the playing group and also the match committee as well. So that's something we know areas we need to work on. We'll get to work on those areas, and hopefully the results will start to turn from that.
What have you learned in your opening few months of footy? Obviously you started.
Plenty. Yeah, plenty.
What are those?
Oh, how long we got? I think you're always learning. Every day on the job, there's something that comes across that you need to adjust or change or adapt to, think about. So, and that's part of what makes the job so exciting is that nothing is consistent. There's always something new, and you've just got to be able to adapt and get through it the best way you can.
I know pre-season there was a big emphasis on kind of running loads, building up that fitness and building out that ability to run out games. You take a little bit of credit out of the fact that then kind of on the fourth quarter on the weekend you guys were clearly running on air in comparison to Port Adelaide. I think obviously 13 scoring shots and had the chances to win. Is that something that you go, look, obviously we didn't get it over the line, but in terms of the work we've done in pre-season to be a four-quarter team, that's something you can take a positive out of?
Yeah, and we want to be a really strong four-quarter team. Are our metrics a lot more than what they were previously? No. But one thing we want to make sure that most of the players have done the full load, and that's probably the pleasing thing is, we had some players that come back from November, December a little bit slower than what we would have liked, and we've built them through all the way through, and they're still building to now. So, but collectively, it is important that no matter what stage of the game, that we can actually fight and continue to play the way we want.
The forward line structure is obviously something we look at this week. Obviously, Tony started forward again on the weekend. Had a good game against Gold Coast in pre-season, so I guess that's something that might be coming into consideration. But obviously, Aaron Francis and then also someone like Jack Buller who kicked 3 goals against Werribee, that it gives you a bit more options that we might see a bit more flexibility this weekend.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Tommy this week. He'll play back. I think one thing we want from him, and we've said all the way along, we'll do whatever's best for the team, and that's this week it'll be behind the ball. And that's one thing I'll put my hand up. We probably need to settle Tom. We have had a really inexperienced forward line group, and for him to do a whole pre-season there as an option, we decided to take last week, and did it work? Probably not. So we put our hands up to that. So that's what we'll do this week. We'll settle that. We'll look at the next couple of training sessions and go through what our forward dynamic looks like without Tom, obviously without Joel, without Logan and the like. And Aaron played a really important role for us for 40 minutes. So his name, like obviously Jack Buller, will still be up there and something we'll discuss.
Obviously, I think I saw Millsy's a bit more involved this week at training. I guess what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been good. It's great to have him back. He's doing the full session today. He'll train all the way through the weekend as well whilst we're away. So, he's been ticking off what he's had to do, which is really pleasing. He's still a little bit away, and we assess at the end of every session how he's pulled up. What can we do again the next session? Do we increase it? What metrics do we chase? So we understand how important he is for the footy club. So we won't rush him back before he's ready, and when he's back, he'll be back ready to go and perform at AFL level.
There was a lot of push and shove with the Swans, with the Suns against the Tigers. Is that something your group will be looking at in terms of perhaps maybe the spot buys within that group?
No, we'll be preparing for them while they sit within 4 in a row. I think like what you've seen across the whole competition, that results, doesn't matter who you're playing, anyone can win on any day. So I think we saw what Richmond did to them. We'll have a look at that, but we'll also have a look at what they did to Adelaide when they played at home in their last game. So we spend a fair bit of time doing our due diligence on the opposition, and that won't change.
I know one thing you mentioned on the weekend was that potentially the defensive transition, when you get the ball turned over against you, maybe hasn't been quite up to scratch. How is that something that you fix in training and during the week, and what are you kind of looking at to kind of fix in that regard?
Yeah, well, that's something we reviewed. I think it's really important that you don't just talk about one aspect of the game, like the way you defend or the way you attack. It's how you set up both of those methods whilst you do or don't have the ball. So one thing is really important is when we are moving the ball, our offensive shape will help our defensive shape as well if we do turn it over. So, on the weekend we had some opportunities where they had some easy goals. We've looked at why that happened and the breakdowns that occurred, and then also when we created 29 front half turnovers, what the difference looks like. And that's something we want to try and do with the players, is mix up our reviews to also make sure that they're always learning.
And just for yourself, we saw you on the bench a fair bit during the game in the second half, and talking to players. I think there was a point where his McInerney, Florent, that you were getting them really close to chat to them. Is that the style of coaching that you feel like is going to be best for you, to be able to fix things on the fly and have those conversations with players as the game goes on?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing, I'm not fixed in what I need to do in relation to, I'm always learning, and part of that as well is to address the playing group the way I see it in the moment. And at the start, I'd love to stay up there with my coaches and work out what's going on. If I think they need something different, an emotional attachment from myself, well then that's what I'll try and provide. So will I get it right every time? No. But I think that's something that I always want to do, is try to stop something, to promote, to continue doing something throughout games the best way we can.
And looked like Errol was your right-hand man down there with the headset on as well. Is he enjoying that sort of aspect when he hasn't been able to play?
I'd rather him on the field. And I think that's the great thing about Errol, or a lot of the leaders, is I'm happy for them to sit in the box, to sit on the bench and have an impact. They understand the players. They've played a lot of footy with them, and it's also great for his development as well in the leadership space. So he's got a great footy brain, keeps him attached to the playing group, but I'd rather see him run around than sit next to him.